Hi, good morning, or I should say good afternoon. I was very glad for me to have the opportunity to share with you what the Hong Kong Jockey Club has done when it comes to the area of segmentation or connecting with customers. I guess one point I would like to make would be for the case of the Hong Kong Jockey Club, since we have an integrated model where both our racing division would act like a jockey club in the case of running the tracks, getting jockeys, trainers, and horses, and as well, we are integrated with our betting operation. So when we talk about customers in our club, is really a combination of both the racing fans as well as the betting customers. And maybe I'll start my story. Oops. Okay, so if I just rewind 5-6 years ago, this is a picture of the horse racing turnover in Hong Kong, basically all falling down due to economic reasons as well as aging population. And you can look 2005 to 2006, we are talking about a 60 billion Hong Kong dollar turnover, which is about 6 billion euro. Things were not looking good. And at that time, if you do a survey in around 2008, 2009 timeframe, you would realize that for those who go on course, what they call regular horse racing fan, 75% of them would actually be over 50 years old. And also, I'm sure that you would find this observation very similar to many organizations in the world, in the sense that racing is always perceived as being very complicated. And also in Hong Kong, racing is merely being conceived as a betting activity, which by then, as we actually have more casinos opening in Macau, the stress on the racing turnover would even be bigger. So what have we done? So first of all, like many organizations or in the racing world, we start with a segmentation. And in the case of the Hong Kong Jockey Club, we actually look into, broadly speaking, 7 different segments: our owners, our members. And if you look at the red zone, these are our hardcore punters, or I would say customers. And most of them are similar to the skill game-based customers that was discussed earlier this afternoon. And then we further look into them, whether they are main, medium value, or high value. And then we have a young rookie segment, which essentially a lot of these are what we call the carnival. If you put it in the Australian context, it would be the carnival race goers. People would only go or show up on the major events. And a lot of them are new to racing, and they are not that skilled when it comes to reading the form. And finally, we actually, given the unique situation of Hong Kong that we are close to China, we do actually get a pretty decent market, which is what we call the tourist segment. And essentially, what we have done is, based on the segmentation, we have developed 4 levers to tackle the problem. And we would apply these 4 levers differently in the different segments. And in particular, what they are is eventful race course. We believe that racing actually starts with the race course, and as a result, we have to really ramp it up the facilities to give racing a chance to reborn. We invest a lot in digital experience along with my IT colleagues. We actually do go into big data mining, and as well as we actually invest quite a bit also of our marketing dollars in non-racing media, because that's the only way that we see growing our pie. And if you actually go back to Hong Kong about 20 years ago, there used to be jockeys and trainers being used by normal consumer brands as spokesmen. Why? Because those were the heydays when racing is really a popular culture in the city or in the country, and gone, probably after year 2000, that trend is gone. And as the racing operator, we just feel that we need to invest into non-racing related media to make sure that racing can become a popular culture again. And only with that, racing will have a chance to come back. And that's the result. I wouldn't say that this marketing or customer strategy is the only thing that would help us coming back in a turnover. Also, we have colleagues in our racing division which continue to keep our racing product world-class in terms of horses, jockeys, and the track. But I would like to say that the overall customer strategy is indeed one of the reasons why we can come back, as you see in the last 5-6 years. So let me share with you what we have done specifically for each of the levers. First of all, the race course. Basically, we have, about 4 years ago, we have earmarked a 7 billion Hong Kong dollar, which is 700 million euro investment into our race course, which allow us to give a chance to really upgrade our facilities. And not only did we do the upgrade, we actually spent a lot of time thinking about the segmentation. So even for the public, you would see, as in the picture, would have areas more for the general public, or on the right-hand side, you would really have more nicer, high-end environment for the serious big punters, where each of them would have a much, you would see the table density is much lower. They would all be equipped with their own TV and information sources. That's the way we think about how we can do a better job to serve different areas of public. Likewise, for owners and members, we really try to push the envelope to give them a luxurious experience. And then also for the crowd, which we call mostly around 20 to 39, that's really our target segment. We try to create a young and trendy image of racing for them. So we actually have invested in different types of restaurants in the race course, as well as, in this case, Adrenaline is actually one of the bar, nightclub, lounge area in our Happy Valley race course. The whole idea is to actually create a race course which is eventful and and we get the entry ticket again. And also, it's another restaurant that we recently opened called Haymarket. And besides the hardware, the venues, we also believe that building the whole experience is the key. And take an example, one of the brands where we built to cater, to target our 25 to 39 years old, a much more what we call the upper demographics, more internationalist crowd in Hong Kong, is our Happy Wednesday brand. We have the unique advantage that our race course is only 15-20 minutes away from the central business district or from the stock market. So as a result, for Wednesday night racing, this is the perfect opportunity. And we have invested a lot to create eventful experience on course, where it's about music, F&B. But one thing very important is we have seen many case studies where the race course can invest into concerts, into the racing, but as a result, you actually don't get people become familiar with the game. So as much as we are investing in our eventful race course, we also have a whole CRM system and customer service people to actually teach people how to play the racing game and how to get familiar. Because we actually don't want, it's always nice to say that we have a very eventful fireworks race course racing night, but if the customers who come in are not converted to become racing fans, that's still a problem. And that's what we actually are doing a lot behind the scene, behind all these activities, to make sure how people get hooked to the sports, how people get to love and enjoy the sports. And again, we leverage a lot of thematics and social media. And in our social media, for example, look at our content strategy. About 40% of them would be about lifestyle and events. But we, of course, always need to have 30% of the content around the racing sports, around the jockeys, around the horses, around something that they need to learn about racing, so that bit by bit, for these guys who enter the door, they can learn and become much more skilled game player. And as a result, we feel quite, success. If you dial back now versus 4 years ago, we do see some impact to our young customer strategy. So that sums up what we have done on the race course. Not only the race course, we actually also try to to pick these lessons and move it into our shops. So as a result, in some of the key shops that we have in Hong Kong now, we do even have racing merchandise corner as well as interactive zone. Again, targeting what we have been doing in the race course successfully, but bring it outside to our branch network. The second thing that we invest in the last 4 or 5 years is the whole digital experience. And here, I don't want to use the word digital channel or online betting, because we believe that just by offering a channel to bet is not going to solve the problem. The real thing is not only is the betting transaction, but also what information you provide digitally, what you make it available for them. It might not be for exactly betting, but for the information, the news that's coming about the sports is equally important. And in terms of the direction that we really have 4. One is mobility. The other one is we have to keep enriching the information that we have available for our fans, especially the ones who treat racing as a skilled game. Gamification is a term that we use to how we help the new customers coming into the game. And finally, when it comes to broadcasting technology, we do look into second screen technology. Mobility, just one picture. If you look at, you saw the growth of our turnover, but then if you look at this chart, which is racing wagering as a percentage of our turnover, the blue part is desktop internet. The yellow part or the orange part is actually on the mobile. Then you can see in the context of our growth, actually, internet or desktop as a percentage of our turnover is actually flat. All the growth that we have seen in the last 4 years comes strictly in mobile, and that already, captures our investment strategy and captures what is important for us. Secondly is, the whole racing content enrichment. The club actually do work a lot with third parties company to just generate analytics, what we call power figures. In fact, if you look at that, we actually try to copy what CNN does or CNBC does for the stock market, or other tools which would actually make the information search process much more simple for our customers. And one other thing that we do is, again, if you look at the whole racing ecosystem, if it is just a jockey club doing it alone, it won't be enough. We actually spend a lot of time talking to our press. If you look at the UK context, it would be the Racing Post. But in Hong Kong, pretty much you would have about 5 to 6 major journals. But unfortunately, all of them still live in the newspaper age. And I do try to, portray the picture and kind of really tell them the story that if racing newspaper stay in the newspaper format, there will be no future. So what actually the Jockey Club has done is we have shifted a lot of our media spend and basically talked to newspaper. If you actually don't have an online version, I'm sorry, I won't be able to put any more marketing dollar on you anymore, because we are trying to go more online. So as a result, give them all the motivation for the external press to also move online, because only they do that at the same time as the club does, there's a chance for the content to become much more mobile and much more reachable to the younger generation. So think about the ecosystem is one lesson that we learned. And thirdly, gamification. Other than our traditional betting interface, we actually do invest, work with our IT colleagues a lot to create interfaces which are more appealing or more easy to understand for our younger generation customers. What you see is actually exactly the screenshot of our Racing Touch betting app. So as opposed to looking at the form and try to find B1 means this horse has a blinker on for the first time, where you can see the picture of the horse with a blinker on. You can see actually the horse is a gray one, or is it a chestnut. This becomes much more visually appealing for our customers than the old way. And second screen, I won't talk much about it because I know that we have an in-depth session later on in the afternoon, but net, this is a technology we invest. And the third thing we do would be on the big data innovation, which I won't, and I really enjoyed the speeches earlier this morning. I think this is the topic of all different betting operators. One example, for example, we found is what we call the absenteeism. When we look at our even biggest punter, we often see a pattern like that. The person would be playing on every Sunday or Saturday or weekend racing, but he or she would never play on a Wednesday night racing. Is there something wrong? But we won't know that only through data mining, that we actually just uncover patterns like that. What actually happened is Hong Kong being a small city with a business-oriented city, a lot of our big customers have to travel outside Hong Kong on weekdays, especially to mainland China, where internet access is limited for betting websites. So therefore, their hobby is they cannot carry their hobby. So, in response, we have actually created various digital tools, which, for example, like this one, the live audio or video broadcast, which allow them, even that they are not in Hong Kong, they will be able to stick to their sports. And this is exactly something very key for our owners and members who are usually in the business world, and they are quite, geographically mobile. I mean, the ideal situation would be whenever your customer is, the guy wake up in a hotel room, open the door, you DHL the race form to them. To me, that's the ultimate vision of being customer-centric. But only with big data can you really mine and understand and identify these sort of opportunities. And then I wouldn't go too much into depth here, but we also, in the last few years, has been via data mining, understanding what sort of bat types would be needed in Hong Kong. And we launched the quartet with the help of Longitude recently, and that was quite successful. And finally is how we also invest to make sure racing can become a popular culture again in the city. And as a framework, we look into different areas in terms of how we leverage celebrities, how we leverage non-racing media. As I mentioned, 40% of our spend is actually on non-racing media as opposed to racing media, which before I joined the club 5 years ago, it used to be 5%, and I really pushed that up. Working with our sponsors is very important, and that relies on the effort of our racing colleague. We also work with third-party social media platform. And one thing to mention is we also spend resource to redevelop our race course gift shop, or in other words, if you look at sports marketing, the whole sports memorabilia. Because no matter what advertising you do, the shelf life of any ad would be about, on the daily newspaper, it's about 1.5 days before people will trash the newspaper. But if you can convince your customer, if you make nice merchandise and memorabilia, and you can convince your customer to wear the T-shirt put on the calendar, that stays on his desk in his room for the whole season, and you actually do get a much bigger bang of the buck. And I think this is something that racing really needs compared to other sports. We are still at the beginning in Hong Kong. There's still a lot for us to improve, but I do really think that this is one of the best marketing spend a jockey club can invest in the sports memorabilia. We also work with different arts and culture to make sure that how we can adapt Chinese art into racing, and this is an example. So all in all, just would very happy to share our story with you in terms of how we think about segmentation, and then also work on the 4 levers to generate the results as we have been in the last 5 years. Thank you very much.